What if I tell you you can buy 16 rental properties on repeat, year after year, without ever having to worry about how to fund these? Would you accept it? Well, I decided that I would go for it, and right now I have 76 multi-family rental units in my portfolio. The secret? There isn't. You just need to know the 5 steps needed to go through, so that way you'll have the investment capital within reach. So let me break it down for you. So before I bought my first rental property, I was in the exact same place you find yourself in right now. And I didn't have a big savings account, and I couldn't fund any real estate dreams. I didn't have exceptional credit, which gave me access to unlimited resources. Neither did I know there are very easy ways to get access to investment capital. But over the years, I found out more about, let's say, creative ways to get funding over and over again, up to the point where right now, I'm able to grow my real estate exponentially year after year thanks to my Fund Your Dreams system. So in this video, I'll reveal the 5 phases of my Fund Your Dreams system for you, of course, so that way you can start your real estate journey just as I did several years ago. Now, you might be wondering, well, why is that? Well, because why would you want to remain stuck in your work, eat, sleep routine when you could become financially free? So let's go ahead and get into the first phase. Phase number 1, different types of funding. So first thing is awareness. You got to be privy to the point of the knowledge that there's many forms of funding. So before being able to get the funding you deeply need, you have to understand the different types of funding and how you can use them to your advantage. First, it's important to understand whether you need funding for residential properties or commercial properties, okay? And this makes a difference in the type of funding you can obtain. So let's talk about residential first. All right, so with residential, many people fund their residential real estate properties by using mortgages, retirement accounts, private money, and some maybe even business funding, but it does require some season requirements there. The other option is commercial properties. It's the same as the residential, but you can also add seller financing. And also, due to the fact that business funding doesn't have to be seasoned, you can use those 2 things in addition. And when I first started out, I never heard of business funding to buy real estate properties. I acquired my first property by using FHA mortgage, which they covered 97.5% of the purchase price. I used the President Obama tax credit, and I got a loan from my auntie. So by using personal funds to get my first property, I had to max out my personal credit cards, and that jammed me up because it had a negative impact on my DTI. That's my debt to income ratio. So I had to spend a whole year paying down the debt prior to getting my next rental property. And it was horrible because I couldn't acquire property as fast as I wanted. And it was only later that I found out about business funding and how I can use this method is much more beneficial to investing in real estate. Well, why is that? Because business funding doesn't show up on your personal credit, and it doesn't have a negative impact on one's debt to credit ratio. So you can max them out to the hills and use them for real estate investing without any impact on your personal credit score. So your debt utilization has no negative impact using business funding. So talking about credit scores, that's exactly what we'll dive into in the next phase. So let's go ahead and jump into phase 2, credit scores, because this is the most frequent question I get from first-time real estate investors. They come out to me and ask, hey, Juan Pablo, what about my credit score? It's quite low, and I don't know if they'll give me funding, the type of funding that I'm looking for. Well, that shouldn't be your first question, because if you have experience and, let's say, a circle of people you can reach out to get capital from, then you have other ways to get the funding. But if you lack experience or that circle that you can borrow money from, private money in other words, then you'll need to count on your credit score. Wait, there is more good news. You don't need a high credit score that you're thinking, right? You might be thinking you need an 800 credit score to get funding. A credit score of 680 is ideal, but we have folks with less credit scores to get funding. The bigger the scores, the better, but don't wait until your score is at 800 to get started. Do as I did. I had a 660 credit score, some blemishes on my credit, some derogatory items, some late pays, and I received $6,000 in funding my first round. Now I have over $400,000 in funding. And after my first round of funding, I started to work on improving my credit scores. I improved my credit, I removed late pays, collections, I reduced my debt to income ratio, I forward found my company in a lender-friendly state, and I started new business entities. So that way, and of course I used the current entity that I had a proven track record, so that way I can continue to get funding on repeat. Now let's get into phase 3. Applying for funding. Finally, I was able to get total funding of $13,000 to buy my first property, and I paired it with an FHA. Plus, I house hacked my property to international students, which means I was renting out the rooms and providing furnished rooms, internet, all that good stuff, so that way I could receive rent at a higher premium. And so I combine these different methods of using funding with house hacking to truly maximize my cash flow. And by using my credit score together with a loan from my auntie and applying for an FHA mortgage, I was able to start investing in real estate with a minimum amount of capital that came from my savings account. And this is what I call capital stacking, meaning having different types of capital stacked together to acquire properties on repeat. And you want to get your hands on whatever capital you can. If you can only get let's say a residential mortgage and not a commercial, then go for it. Use that residential mortgage to get a property. And if you can only get $10,000 in funding and not the $50,000 that you truly want straight out the gate, then go for it. Low money is better than no money. The goal is to get as much capital as possible and stack it. But we're still missing a crucial question, right? How much funding do you need to get started? Well, unfortunately, I don't have a one size fits all answer to that. Every market is different, every property is different, right? Every situation is different. But if you have at least, just to answer your question, let's say $10,000, you can do a partnership and then that would be great. And if you have $20,000, then you can do a deal by yourself without partners. And if you use the capital you have, whether $10,000, $20,000, in the right market that's safe and affordable, then you can get started with those amounts. Now let's get to phase 4. Buy property. Now that we have the capital, we can move on to actually buying a property. It's crucial to first secure the funds and only start the search for a property afterward. We call this find the money and then find the deal. So if you do it the other way around, you may find an incredibly good deal, but you don't want to let this opportunity slip out of your hands as a result of just not being able to actually have the funds available to buy, to secure, to lock down that property. So then if you did it that way, you have to run around like a chicken with its head cut off to be able to get the capital, and it just puts a lot of unnecessary stress on you. And that's when the mistakes tend to happen. Instead, take the time to gather all the funding that you can get your hands on and start your search with this budget. But one, what type of property should I be looking for? Well, good question. If you want to learn more about which property to buy as an investment, in other words, what makes a deal, then click on the pop-up at the top of your screen and you'll learn more. Now, back to when I was 26 years old, I bought my first duplex for $355,000 in New Jersey. And I wanted to live in one unit and rent out the other unit to get cash flow. And up until the point where I even moved into the attic to be able to rent out both of my other units, I wanted to get as fast as possible the necessary funds to acquire a second property. And that brings me to my last phase of my Fund Your Dreams system. Refinances and repeat. I owned my first property and it felt great. It felt amazing. The road to financial freedom was still long, but I started to see the final results. Now it was just a matter of repeating the same steps over and over again. And here's how you can work towards your next properties. Every 6 months, you can go through phases 1 through 4 again to get new funds for more properties. You'll go from your first property in your first year to buying 2 in your second year, adding another 4 in your third year, investing in another 8 in your fourth year, and acquiring 16 units in your fifth year. Got it? This same system brought me to 76 rental properties myself. Just follow the 2-2-2 method. Apply for business funding twice a year. That's the first 2. Then buy a multi-unit with built-in equity and appreciation potential twice a year. So that means you get funding twice a year, you buy 2 multifamily properties twice a year. And you can potentially get that with business funding. And then every 2 years, you want to be able to look at your properties that you've had in your portfolio for 2 years and do a cash out refinance and use the money you pull out to either pay down the business credit or buy your second deal. So that's the 2-2-2 funding. This fund your deal system is that simple because you have repeatability. As long as you continue to work on your credit, work on your business and your investments, make them more profitable, apply for funding twice a year, buy a property twice a year, and then refinance those properties every 2 years, then you can scale this to the moon. And remember, I didn't have anything you don't have at the moment. It's all about taking the first step. Get on the right path and never look back. I know this is cheesy, but if I could do it as a 26-year-old, you can do it too. Yes, even today, I help people every month to get the funds they need to grow their real estate investment portfolio. I'm 100% convinced you'll be able to get your own funds from the moment you start to implement the system discussed in this video. Don't believe me? What if I can guarantee it for you? How? Check the link in the description underneath and rest assured it won't cost you anything.